It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Andrew Whale. Andrew is a well-respected sheep veterinarian from Central Victoria and is currently President of the Australian Veterinary Association Sheep, Goat and Camelid Special Interest Group. Tonight, Andrew will give us an overview of sheep health, welfare and biosecurity from a sheep veterinarian's perspective. Andrew will also discuss research and extension activities, grower culture, and the voluntary adoption of pain relief that underpin constant improvements to animal welfare outcomes. I'll now invite Andrew to share his screen and remind delegates that there will be a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. As was the case with Bruce, please feel free to type questions into the Q&A panel. Andrew, I can see your screen now, so it's over to you.
Thanks, Ed, and thanks everyone for having me here this evening. It's really exciting to be able to partner as a veterinarian, as the president of the Australian Veterinary Association and the Special Interest Sheep Group, to be partnered with this trust in Australian Wolf campaign. The first thing I've been asked to comment on tonight is to introduce you and to the sheep welfare standards and guidelines. And these have been developed in Australia, and there's two key things that I think we should all be aware of in regards to these. The first one is that the standards are enforceable. So they're actually legislation across Australia, and people can actually be punished for not following these standards. And the other thing that's really important to know is that these are based on current scientific knowledge, and they've been formed by consultation with industry, with the general public, and the government, as well as using scientific groups like ourselves, the Australian Veterinary Association, to ensure that these are best practice standards. And the guidelines are more of a practical approach and more of the advice. These are not actually enforceable, but they help give producers a really good guide as to the way they should be going about approaching animal welfare. And just to explain those in more detail, I've just pulled out an example. So the standard 6.2 here is that a person must not tail dock sheep that are more than 6 months old without using appropriate pain relief and hemorrhage control for the sheep. That's just one aspect of tail docking within the standards. And you can see here the guidelines that also fit around that show that it should only be done where there are no alternatives, and that the process results in benefits to lifetime sheep welfare, better flock management, and a reduced OH&S risk. And you can also see there 6.14 that it should be accompanied with pain relief where practical and cost-effective methods are available. I also want to talk about the Australia's animal biosecurity system, and I guess we are blessed in Australia by being on an island and being able to have very good animal disease levels in our country. And obviously we have very strong water controls to help keep this in place. And as a vet, we are also involved in really strong on-farm surveillance and industry surveillance. And I just wanted to talk to two of the programs that we are heavily involved in as sheep veterinarians in Australia. So one of them is we have government funding to help investigate whenever there is significant diseases. And this helps ensure that the diseases we might find on a farm are diseases that we already know about, and that there's not any exotic diseases that have entered Australia. And there's also a program called our TSE program, and that helps ensure that we don't have scrapie, and it also ensures that we don't have mad cow disease. And I guess it's the approach that if you're not testing for these things, how do you know that you don't have them? And in Australia, because there's wonderful government funding to help investigate these diseases, we actually have really good assurance that we are clean, and we do have a really wonderful, it's not disease free, but we don't have any major exotic diseases entering Australia. And the third aspect there is our NLIS scheme, so our National Livestock Identification Scheme. And this means that every animal has a tag which means we can track it back to the property of origin. So if there is ever any incursion of disease, we're able to very quickly trace that back and obviously minimise the impacts on animal welfare, but also on trade. Another area, just as part of my day-to-day role with producers, is research and extension. And we've been wonderfully blessed, I guess, in Australia in recent years, to have a course developed, and there's one that I want to touch on here, and that's the Lifetime Year Management course. That was something that came out of research in southwest Victoria, which showed that when we feed animals to maintain condition during pregnancy, we actually get these wonderful carryover benefits in the progeny, and some of those are listed there. So we see increased lamb survival, we see reduced ewe mortality rates over lambing, and one of the big plus in terms of our wool industry is the increased quality and quantity of wool per animal. So as we fed them better, the follicle development in the lamb showed that they produce more wool over their lifetime, but it's also finer and therefore a better product. And this course has now been delivered to over a third of Australia's sheep producers, which is just fantastic. And it's it's government funding that's led to wonderful research. But then we've actually also extended that message to producers, and it's a really important role I see as vets, but also as other extension deliverers, is being able to educate our producers and ensure that we are doing things best practice, and the wonderful welfare outcomes that we've seen through lifetime year management cannot be underestimated. Another area that as a vet, and most of our veterinary products in Australia are dispensed by veterinarians, which should give our end consumers, I guess, a good level of trust that we do have vets involved in our on-farm management. But what we've seen in recent years is a real change in producer behaviour and a real move towards voluntary uptake of pain relief. So pain relief for certain on-farm practices is not a legal requirement, but what we have seen, and I'm going to talk specifically to an example here in a minute, is that producers are really wanting to give best class pain relief management to their sheep. You can see there that in the past sort of 5 years, there's been three new products that have become available to sheep producers, and we're seeing great uptake of these. One of them is Novocaine, which is pictured here. I just wanted to show here, this is just as a percentage, but in the last 12 months, we've seen a 6-fold increase in the demand for this product. And there is absolutely no legislation to use this product. That is simply producers wanting to do best practice by their livestock. And I think it's a fantastic story, and something that I wanted to share with you tonight. And that is the conclusion of my presentation. So once again, thanks for the opportunity to be involved in the Trust in Australia Wool campaign.
Thanks for that presentation, Andrew. I've got a couple of questions here for you. As a sheep vet, have you seen a change in sheep vet attitudes and culture relating to animal welfare? If so, what changes have you seen?
Is it referring to sheep vets or sheep producers?
As a sheep vet, have you seen a change in vet attitudes? Yeah.
Vet attitudes. Yeah, look, I think so. I guess my attitude shifted a lot. I can probably speak to my attitude a lot, but I think just having the conversation around pain relief and the need for pain relief has really changed the way that we do perceive that we're managing these animals, and we need to ensure that they are, where possible, pain-free. And I think that just starting that conversation, which I guess has been, the last 10 years, it's been a really good, positive conversation. I think there's been a great attitude shift in the last 4 to 5 years, which I guess is shown by the fact that we're now stocking these products, and producers are wanting to use them on their farm.
I think that's a really positive move on behalf of industry. We've got another question from Leslie Pryor, who is in the UK, and she says, Andrew, in Europe, our welfare protocols for sheep ask us to reconsider the need for tailing and castration before implementing protocols. There is an increasing pressure over here to do neither. Would you consider introducing a comment asking producers to consider the need before doing either procedure?
Yeah, look, I think it's a really good question, and it's something that does come up occasionally. I guess in Australia, there's serious welfare implications on most people's properties if we don't tail dock, and that's because of the extensiveness of our farms, and because we do have a lot of fly pressure. It doesn't take a lot of DAG to cause issues on farms. So I think it's something that we should be continually addressing and working with the end consumer to see, well, how can we handle having tails left on? But at the moment, it's not something that producers would be able to adopt extensively without having significant welfare implications for their animals. And also, I think there'd be significant supply chain issues.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'd agree. I mean, all of our animal husbandry procedures are done because they're relevant and of use to our specific and vast and varying climatic conditions and regions that we produce sheep in. That's all we've got time for at the moment, but thanks for the questions and thanks, Andy, for your presentation.
No worries.